A toast, new day, new life, new week. 16 May 2023. We will continue from the point we stopped, not keeping something new, and try to solve problems that you are unable to solve, especially when create the problem or believe that you have the solution into something that you are not accustomed to deal. Coffee. Uh, Last thing we had was a conversation with many courts on Europe, on Americas, and the International Criminal Court. We could check that the global threat got raised since local activity but under the domain or interaction crossing fields beyond the limits as jurisdiction. It implies that all jurisdiction has the power to say the right failure to control the organized crime. If go by criminal purpose on it, it's a treason of state power. The other, more coffee. The other activity we have is the first one was the security. We could check by the model in 1 minute that we have the organized crime inside the security forum running through the judicial system all around the globe, unable to do a single decision against the organized crime in a transcontinental level without being affected by this. Coffee and milk and chocolate. So, second thing that we have in mind is that if the security is affected in the way we prove it, maybe this goes in other areas, considering the capacity as a state and institution to do the planning activity all around the globe, bring ourselves to the economy. We are having the G7 summit, I think, and if I have a paycheck as 37 trillion expectation sourced on my right as compensation under constitutional conformance legally charged, a system failure at the judicial power will be troubled to recognize this because it's according sourced at the law under constitutional conformance and it's against the crime as anti-crime. So we are proving this one more time as the goal we had this period, which was have in the way we had, at least I think, having proven the global defense has tolerance with institutional crime and paramilitary activity. Do you have any doubt? So, the economic activity, just planning activity through the institutional system, not necessarily using the institutional power, is threatened. And threats we all proved by the consumer threats at the consumer market that affected we all. In the same way, this passed through many systems. The regulation of many systems instead be concerned with the big tech that allow ourselves to complain this must consider do the review inside each judicial system and also the consumer market. By the paramilitary activity running things, it's not difficult. Consider that you can have instruments dismantled, coming and going around, or even guns, as you know, kind of those new type of military gear that is biohazard and things like this. The thing on present time since that is the G7 summit. If I have the paycheck and the compensation and I can operate this paycheck in the way I did against institution to have segments formed with a simple depuration have checks on it with the purpose as continuity of criminal activity as institutional crime that only goes inside the institution, you know, maybe the G7 must do a review or some chair must be out to have the entry as Portugal, could be Brazil, but Brazil was against me, my research, my circles, all this period. We considered a judicial account and one bank on America and another on Europe, Portugal. We will check that your pattern on G7 that you are unable to solve is the inflation. The inflation is the dispersive and corrosive internal notation at the price formation, I would say, affect the way you will structure the price as the element, monetary element to quantify all things you have. You can't have the reading about inflation without have the reading of your productive system. The labor is the unique element that can come around, coming and going, and has other elements on it as internal arguments as labor force, like the preference as consume, that can set cluster to one specific company and put others down, allowed to be handled and set a trust or dump in economic crimes, and also the electoral preference as the electoral choice, considering the rational expectation of economic agents. They are the only one that can make choices, even under suppression engineers, to keep their work and that keep the labor activity, for instance, during the COVID-19, and having previous moment with preparation and crimes already perpetrated the COVID with crimes integrated a lot of things, and the next moment trying to scapegoat by complementary relation, causal relation, conditions sine qua non. Institutional crime only happens by criminals getting inside and have the continuity inside. You didn't have dismissed list, none of you or many of you. We will check that after have this presentation and have the suggested a request to the chairs at the G7, take a look around and pick one to be out if Portugal has the right to entry as the 70th most wealthy economy at the globe. We observe that I have my productive system as investment saving curve. I have my monetary market as liquidity money curve. Indeed, they are equals as identity despite presenting with a different movement to ourselves. We will check that the inflation is quantified here at the liquidity money curve as monetary market by the projection as desire inside the things we have. We will check that in a previous moment we could observe that our institution failure inside, if do not control, will be surrounded by the criminal activity. The desire, having the management of frustration, having the decreasement of salary and capacity to buy things, pushing the limits of the credit beyond the rational capacity to satisfy the credit as obligation assumed, having many nations and some of the most powerful nations of present time considering the default. And we must have in mind the difference between the debt and the default is the moment and the pattern you set or raise the obligation that you must accomplish and the way you deal with this obligation. The inflation will be something corrosive and will take the capacity to buy things by the frustrated incomes on your personal wealth cycle or nation or company, whatever, and in the same way here. As audit, we are observing the pattern as the increasement of organized crime inside your institution and to surround the institution. The inflation is a criminal index used to do the cohesive management as capacity of economic plan sourced on institution that has sourced equally by collinear argument the criminals inside. The condition sine qua non in both cases is have the continuity of criminal activity inside the institution by criminal inside, already segmented and under regression until the chairs with which are specific acts by this paycheck as theory named hell's bound that at those you are unable to solve, and by this one of those chairs must be out of the G7 to do the entry as Portugal, because we are solving the problems that you are unable to understand and solve, including the inflation as a criminal index for desperation in global scale, reducing the capacity to satisfy your needs and desire by the available and limited resources, which is the premise at the economic science. You do not respect none of them as premise in none of the science. Have a great week.